We use technology now more than ever. From social media to personal phone calls, photos, and internet searches, our world revolves around our phones, laptops, and tablets. We consider our technology to be our property, just as our house or our car. According to the Fourth Amendment, these pieces of property require a search warrant to prevent unreasonable searches and seizures. But does our technology fall into the same category? Most of our technology we use today was invented within 100 years ago, but they've only become widespread within the past 20. This makes the concept of applying the Fourth Amendment to include technology a newer concept.
Washington Journal continues.
Our last guest of the morning, Oren Kerr of George Washington University. He teaches at their law school there. And Mr. Kerr, the reason we brought you on, it was the Supreme Court heard a case concerning search warrants. Could you give us the setup, so to speak, as far as what the case deals with?
Yes, this is a case coming from Kentucky. It's about a drug arrest that occurred in an apartment building. And the issue is whether the police were allowed to enter the apartment without a search warrant. Now, a search warrant is a court order that a judge approves that says you're allowed to go enter into this place and search for evidence or arrest people. And the government had reason to think that there were crimes occurring inside the apartment, but they didn't have a search warrant. And the issue in the case was whether the police were allowed to search the apartment without the warrant, or whether they needed to stop, go get a warrant, and then come back and search the apartment at a later time.
So the step...
Fourth Amendment applies to the police ability for search and seizure. And as it applies to homes, vehicles, electronics, phones, tablets, and the police have to have a probable cause to be able to get into those items. Furthermore, they have to have either a search warrant or a consent to search, some kind of legal authority to be able to get in there. They can't just take somebody's property, and they certainly can't take somebody's phone and tablet without their permission and be able to look through it. As the Fourth Amendment applies to me, I've been a police officer for 28 years, a detective for 23 of those years. I've also been in for the last 14 years, I've been a computer forensics analyst. So how it really applies in my line of work is I've had to apply several times for search warrants over the years when I worked narcotics, when I worked as a regular detective, and certainly now as a forensic examiner, I have to make sure that either the consent to search covers the material that I've been authorized to search, and I also have to make sure that the search warrants clearly spell out what the authority to be able to search the items that they bring to me in the forensic lab. We have to make sure that the legal writings and the search warrants and the consent to search covers the parameters of what the detective or investigator is looking for. So we want to make sure that we never go outside the parameters of that search warrant. And we want to make sure that we stay within the context of the technology that they're wanting to search. Phone has to be approved by a court at some level, whether it's a state court or a federal court. Most of that's covered under a federal wiretapping law. If somebody bugs somebody's phone or taps somebody's phone without permission and without court authority, then it becomes it's illegal. And then it becomes a criminal offense at that point.
In the court case Olmstead versus United States, the government was suspicious of various individuals for being involved in illegal liquor sales. The government wiretapped into the individuals' phones for multiple months and listened in on their private conversations. They used the information for evidence to prove these people guilty of smuggling and selling alcohol. The case was ruled in favor of the government because there was no physical search or seizure. Today, everything happens online. The government has the power to obtain about any information you have on your devices. From this case, the government is basically saying that they can take any information they want as long as they don't take it from you physically.
In the Riley versus California court case, David Riley belonged to the Lincoln Park Gang of San Diego. He was involved in a drive-by shooting, firing on members of a rival gang. Riley was pulled over, and because he was driving with a suspended license, the car was impounded. Before a car is impounded, the officer is required to perform an inventory search. The officer found 2 guns and a cell phone. The officer then searched through the phone to find evidence that David Riley was involved in the gang shootings. He was then convicted of separate charges than from when he was pulled over. He was sentenced to 15 years to life for attempted murder, shooting at an occupied vehicle, and assault with a semi-automatic firearm. The question is, Does this violate his Fourth Amendment right? Yes. A warrantless search is only to be performed when an officer is in danger. Justice Samuel A. Alito, Jr. suggested that legislature make laws that determine when it is okay to search through the contents of a cell phone during events of an arrest. Because of this case, there are now distinctions between when it is right and when it is wrong. This court case made it unconstitutional to search any digital contents without a warrant.
A cop has to have a warrant to search my stuff, so I don't have to worry about just some random guy coming into my house or taking my phone or like going into my car and just looking through all my stuff without a reason to be looking. I personally have not had an experience with the Fourth Amendment, but my older brother has. He was pulled over and he was smoking while he was being pulled over, and the cop thought it was marijuana even though it was cigarettes. So without a warrant, he searched his whole car top to bottom. Yeah. He didn't find anything, but
Yeah, he didn't have a warrant.
no warrant. I do not think that the Fourth Amendment covers technology because whatever you do on your phone is always being tracked and it's put into records. Even if you delete it, it's still going to be there, and anyone can get into those records and access them.
In conclusion, the right of the Fourth Amendment against unreasonable searches and seizures should expand to include our technology. It is an important part of our daily lives, and we should have the right to our own privacy. They hold just as much, if not more, information than any house, business, car, or bag. Over 3 million people have access to technology in the world today. In the US, half the population owns a smartphone. As technology only grows, we must accommodate for these changes and modify our previous view of the Fourth Amendment.
Personal phone calls, photos, and internet searches, our world revolves.
What?
Oops.
It was just like, I have no clue what I'm saying. I'm sorry.